Wow. Hey, much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Once again, I appreciate you guys doing that. Today, guys, we're just gonna go ahead and continue this amazing series I got going. This incredible research, this very revealing, you know, history changing information, which is that a lot of the what we think of African people, African nations, especially a lot of the ruling ones, are actually not from Africa. The origins are outside of Africa, as we have been seeing in previous presentations. Let me just go to that real quick. So if you're new to my channel, or you just happen to miss the last videos in this series with the same topic that we're talking about, these are the ones right here. This is the playlist. It's called Africans Not From Africa, where we're showing that a lot of the people of Africa are actually from other places of the world. They're not from Africa. So that whole out of Africa theory gets debunked right away. We got the Shona people or Bantu people coming from Persia, the Hausa, Khan and Borno people coming from Iraq, Baghdad, the Lebu people coming from Hindustan. We got the Yoruba, who are also related to the people we're going to talk about today through Jarub, through Joktan, Ukatan, Himyarites and all that, people from Yemen we're going to talk about today. And then we got this other one, the unknown Arabs, the Arab origin of many of the African, these are all really good videos. I recommend you guys watch if you haven't. Okay, got a little excerpt from this one today and the Yoruba one. Also, we did one on the Mandinka people, how they are related also to the Himyarites and the Yemen people, and Garamantis, who were coming from that area as well before them. We're gonna show their relationship too, and we did one on the Fulani and the Tororbe, the Turuba Tororbe people, which they're gonna mention today. Again, these are all coming from Asia, from Yemen too, from Arabia. All right, different places, not from Africa. And today we got another one. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, we're gonna do a little refresh. Who we talking about? We just talking about the descendants of Khatan, as you guys see, who is actually Joktan. That's Joktan, who is a son of Eber or Abir. In Islamic tradition, they call him Abir, Eber, Abir, and Khatan is Joktan. He is the progenitor of the Himyarites, as you guys can see here. The Himyarites through Jarub. Through Jarub, we go down in this page. We got Eber, and we got Khatan or Joktan, ancestor of the Arab or El Ariba, the pure Arabs, through his son Jarub. We got that on previous videos. That's what I was saying. Check out my Yoruba video. And through Jarub, you get Yashab and eventually Saba. This is in today's case, right? We're talking about today. And through Saba, we go down a little bit. Saba's children, as you see here, the last one is Himyarites. You get the Himyarites and Himyar. A lot of the African people come from Himyarites as well, and we're going to be talking about that today. Okay, so Himyar is the one we're going to be pinpointing today, who had his own descendants, and we're going to talk about a lot of them today and who they are in Africa. All right, continuing our investigation, we're gonna literally go over some info we already went over, because you guys are gonna see how many of these African people are related in ancient times, but eventually their progenitors were mixing with other women, creating their own people, right? And we return again to this book, The Unknown Arabs, clear definitive proof of the dark complexion of the original Arabs and the Arab origin of Africans, not of so-called African Americans, but Africans. He's trying to relate that. He's trying to add the fake West African slave trade, but this book says something totally different. It's talking about proving the African people are Arabs, not Americans. The African people are Arabs, right? So if you carry this blood, well, that's for you to find out how. But other than that, we're talking about the people of Africa. This is again by Tariq Berry. We're going to go into the book real quick again, and then we're going to read other sources and then come back to it, okay? So what I'm going to do is first go over some information that we already read in previous videos, just some little extras just to refresh some of the information based on today's topic, okay? So let's go ahead and get into that right now. Before we actually begin reading, I just want to have context and for you guys to have a reference, geographical reference, right? So you can understand. So we're looking at Yemen right here, right? Where is Yemen? I'm going to back up. All right. You see, it's right under Saudi Arabia. It was all part of Arabia at one point. Oman, Yemen. You guys see where it is? Go back to the other view of map. So Yemen is literally right next to East Africa. You see? So there's many ways people from Yemen can get to Africa. Through this way, going up through Egypt, going through the desert. That's how many people did it, many different ways, right? So today we're gonna be going over again the root of some of these African people coming out of Yemen, right? The stories and how they became part of the Sanhaja people, the Sanhaja Empire, which had many branches, as you guys will see, spilling over to a lot of these parts of North Africa, as you guys see here, North Africa, near the Mediterranean, in Algeria, Libya, Mauritania, Mali, and Senegal, right? A lot in Senegal, and a lot of these places, right? And even into, as we're going to read today, Spain. Who are the so-called Moors eventually? All related to people coming out of Yemen, Arabia, anciently. They're not from Africa. You're pure Arabs, in this case coming out of Himyard coming out of eventually Saba, a son of Jarub, a progenitor of the Jaruba, a son of Chaktan, a son of Eber, the pure Arabs. All right. So I have reference now. Do you guys see? We're going to be talking about, are they talking about Senegal or Mauritania? Talking about West Africa, right over here. Senegal and West Africa. We're talking about Algeria, Morocco, or Tunisia, any of these places. You're talking about North Africa, all right? So you can have reference. And Spain over here, right next to Africa. You see Morocco. All right, let's go to the book now. This pre-Islamic immigration of Arabs to the area called Africa has not been given the importance that it deserves from historians. Consequently, many people are unaware of the fact that there were Arabs in the area called Africa long before the Islamic invasion in the 7th century. According to Jawad Ali, some scholars believe that the reason many well-known Arab tribes that immigrated to the area called Africa hundreds of years before the Islamic period were counted as African. In parentheses, reclassified, by scholars of the Torah. And pre-Islamic times is because of the fact that when these Arabs immigrated to the area called Africa in pre-Islamic times, they formed colonies and governments and eventually began to be considered indigenous to the area. They were considered indigenous to the area because of the lack of knowledge on the part of some scholars at that time. Just as many scholars today lack this knowledge of Arabs being present in the area called Africa since pre-Islamic times. I want to also add here that it's almost done also intentionally by the people who are coming in and rewriting the history. The conquerors write the history, guys. In its account of the immigration of the Tuba to the area called Africa, many years ago, Palmer's Sudanese memoirs mentions the fact that some extinct Arabs, Arab el-Baida, that's why they called extinct Arabs, immigrated to this area, Africa, at some time in the remote past. The account runs as follows. So, just like the Maya went extinct, right? Just like a lot of Indians went extinct, right? But it's you. You just got reclassified. Oh, you mean the people who got reclassified as Africans, but they were Arabs, right? They call them extinct Arabs now. The account runs as follows. It says it was Tuba, Umar the Himyarite, all right? The Yemenite. So Himyarite coming from Joktan, right? Coming from Jarub. So it was Joktan, then Jarub, and then from Jarub came the Himyarites and the Yoruba, all right? Check out my Yoruba video. And then we got the Yemenite, son of Malik, who got lost and went apart when they left Yemen or Yemen and came to Medina, the glorious, where his people multiplied till they reached 1,470 souls of the Tuba ul Awal al Himyariyu, counting men and women. After the death of Umar the Himyarite, the Yemenite, his people migrated to the west and crossed the Great Sea, the Red Sea. They and their learned men of the Banu Adam, the learned Abdullah, and his sons, and Ibrahim, and those who followed them. They crossed the Great Sea and settled on the African coast for many years. There joined them the people of Baderi or Badi. El-Ghanimi says the nomadic Arab tribes began their movement in tremendous numbers towards the African continent. From the middle of the 1st century, the Islamic calendar. From the 1st century of the Islamic calendar. Immediately after the Muslims conquered Egypt in the 7th century, these Arabs poured forth in large numbers into Africa, That's not the only time they poured. They kept pouring all the way up to the 1800s, guys. This immigration continued from the time of the Arab conquest in the 1st century of the Islamic calendar, 7th century AD, until the 5th century of the Islamic calendar, 11th century AD. Doesn't that coincide with the so-called Moors going into Europe? Oh, man. It's a whole other topic we're going to get into, right? Well, we shall. After the people in these countries were totally brainwashed by the colonizers, they developed new ideas about themselves and their relation to the Arabs. The European colonizers convinced them to reject their traditions of Arab origin and to separate themselves from the Arab world, okay? They convinced them to believe what their fathers and grandfathers had told them about their being Arabs and to believe what they had to say about their origin. Look, they told them, don't believe your grandparents, man. You're not Indian. Don't believe your grandparents. You're from Africa, man. They did the same to the Arab people that ended up in Africa and now are Africans today. They did the exact same thing. We don't learn from history. We're going to repeat it. It worked. It worked at that time and period. It worked over there in Africa. They said, you know what? Let's do it in America. It worked there. We can do it over there. We're just going to tell the Indians the same thing. Learn history or you're doomed to repeat it. They convinced them to call their fathers and grandfathers liars and to believe them and the very people who say that Ariel Sharon is a Hebrew. It's funny, man, because, props to the author, right? But you're doing the same thing when you're trying to make the Americans Africans. You're doing the exact same thing. When their grandparents and their genealogy tells them they were Indians and actual Black Europeans, not Africans. Just like you're saying, Ariel Sharon is not a Israelite, right? We know he's a Cheza. Well, Americans are not specifically African either. The European colonizers taught them, and the colonizer controlled school systems and missionaries, that the Arabs are white, that they are black, and that there is no relation between the two. Wow. I mean, this is a script, guys. You guys see, this is a plan put in motion everywhere. It's a script. They follow. It's a script they follow. Hey, follow this. You won't go wrong. Before the arrival of the Europeans and the spread of Pan-Africanism, okay, most of the area now called West Africa was Arab and a part of the Arab world. All right. The people spoke Arabic and said that they were of Arab origin. Before the whole hijack, oh, we from here. They found alongside the Arabs from other parts of the Arab world and traveled to and from the different parts of the Arab world. Also, Arabs from different parts of the Arab world traveled to and from this area. There was no Guinea. Listen, there was no Guinea, Gambia, Mauritania, Senegal, Nigeria, Chad, Sudan, and Saudi Arabia, for example. There was none of that. Body bag for the illusion. Yo, shout out to Drop. Oh, I know that hurt a lot of people right there, bro. It's okay. Breathe. Wow. There were different tribes, and these tribes traveled freely to all parts of the Arab world. Listen, and settled where they pleased, not these fake boundaries. You will find that some of the same tribes are found in many of the different countries that you have today. They, the colonizers, separated these people from their Arab origin and from the Arab culture. This is how they forgot their origin and became Negroes. These people developed a new origin. And now they got a whole new origin. And now you got a new language. And the colonizers made this new origin and language their true origin and language. This is why the new generation have no knowledge of their true origin. Oh, so similar to the Americas, right? They only know what the colonizers taught them in their publications, Orientalist books, and missionary schools, which have filled Africa for more than 2 centuries. They did it in Africa, and then they went and did it in the Americas. So Senegal, which gets its name from the Sanhaja, the famous Himyarite Arab tribe, began to abandon its Arabism. Right? Remember, Himyarite Arab tribe coming from Joktan or Jarub, the son of Joktan. It also began to abandon its Arabic language, which was until 1910 the official language of the country. As Mohammed Suleiman el-Tayyib says, the country Senegal gets its name from the Himyarite Arab tribe of Sanhaja. The country Senegal, right? Senegal is literally a Himyarite name for the tribe of Sanhaja, to be exact. So that's a Joktanite, right? From Jarubite, right? Jarubite tribe coming out of Joktan. To be exact, the country Senegal gets its name from the branch of Sanhaja called Senegal. Look, Senegal. When the French entered the area, they corrupted the pronunciation of Senegal and began calling it people Senegal. The Sanhaja Muleth Timen are divided into many branches. These branches are Lemta, Auriga, Jedala, Lamtuna, Utsila, Sansiga, Senega. Remember, when comes the word Senegal, and remember they weren't originally from that area either. The Ketama, the Targa, Mesufa, the Sagawa, and Senata. The Sanhaja Muleth-Timen are also called the Tuareg, and most people know them by this name. All right. Bovel says that Muleth-Timen are believed by many to have arrived in Africa as part of the Himyarite invasion from southern Arabia. Invasion, not refuge, not refugees seeking asylum, invasion from southern Arabia. So the Yoruba and all these people, they invaded from southern Arabia, which followed approximately the same route as the much earlier migration of the Gara peoples. The author of Tariq el-Sudan, Abdel Rahman el-Sadi, who was from the Muleth-Timen, quotes, Ibn el-Khatib as saying, these Lamtun are related to the Lamtuna, and they are from the children of Lamt. Lamt, they are from the children of Lamt. Lamt, Jedal, Lemt, and Mashtuf are descended from Sanhaja. Lemt is the forefather of Lemta, and Mashtuf is the forefather of the Masufa. Right? These are African peoples today, guys. They are nomadic, transitory people who travel about in the Sahara. The Sanhaja are descended from Himyar. There is no genealogical relation between them and the Berbers except through marriage. All right, so they were different than the Berbers. Okay, they left the Yemen and moved to the Sahara. That's when they started kind of mixing with the Berbers, and that's where you kind of get different nations from there. All right, so you guys understand. I know it's very complicated and it seems confusing, but the more and more you study this, maybe even rewatch the videos, watch the old ones, all different ones, you start understanding the whole details, who's who is mixed with what, who's coming out of what, right? As you guys can see though, it's all into Africa, not out of. We've been debunking that whole out of Africa theory. Theories are not facts. That's why it's called a theory. So they left Yemen and moved to the Sahara, just like the Yoruba. All right, guys. So real quick, just to corroborate, I just want to show you guys that this is real history. We're going to read from the Tariq al-Sudan. What is this? The Tariq al-Sudan, also known as Tariq as-Sudan, History of the Sudan, is a West African chronicle written in Arabic in around 1655 by the chronicler of Timbuktu, okay? Al-Sadi. He wrote that. It provides the single most important primary source, the most important primary source for the history of the Songhai Empire, okay? So I don't care what a Pan-African with personal biases and opinions says about what we're doing, you know, the research we're doing about these nations coming from somewhere else, because we're reading their most important primary source for their history. This is what we're about to get into right now. I actually found a copy here in French. There's a translation from the Arabic to the French. You know, there's probably Arabic versions that I can't read it, so I don't know if I'm even looking at the right source. But I was able to find a French version of this book. Okay, again, the Tariq as-Sudan. Let me just go to the cover. So the Tariq as-Sudan, or the History of Sudan. Arab documents, History of the Sudan, okay? Translated from the Arabic. We're gonna go on to, let me see, page 43, right? And we grab all this right here, all the way right to the next page a little bit, okay? And then this is this right here, as you guys can see. All right. It says they are Muslims, followed the Sunnah, and waged holy war against the Negroes. But these Muslims, remember, they are also so-called black. So who's the so-called Negroes? The Sanhaja, remember? The Sanhaja, we just read about it in the other book on known Arabs, trace their origins back to Himyar. All right, Himyar. Remember, Himyar is the son of Jarub, who is the son of Joktan or Katan. So they all descend from the Himyar, right? The origins are with the Himyar, right? As you guys can see, the Himyarite kingdom, South Arabia, right? South Arabia. The history of Yemen, right? Yemen. Himyar was a polity in the southern highlands of Yemen. So going back to the translation, it says here, they are Muslims, follow the Sunnah and wage holy war. The Sanhaja, listen, the Sanhaja trace their origins back to Himyar. They are only related to the Berbers through their women. They came from Yemen and went to the Sahara, their present homeland, in the Maghreb. Okay? All right, you guys see that? So, real quick, I want you guys to remember who the Himyarites descend from? They descend from Jarub. Remember Jarub, the progenitor of the Yoruba. As says here, approaches to Arabic linguistics, presented to Kees Versteeg on the occasion of his 60th birthday, edited by Everhard Ditters and Harald Motzki. Now it says here, look, the majority of historians among them, the author of Tawarikh al-Uman al-Isfahani and the author of Al-Marif ibn Qutayba, tell us that Yarub, born from Qatan, was the first to speak in clear Arabic. Remember, Qatan is Joktan, guys. So Yarub is a son of Joktan. Joktan is a son of Eber. So he was the first to speak clear in Arabic. What does that mean? The first to bear the crown in Yaman. Yaman, the first who was greeted by his sons with the formula, "May you avoid the curse of your day, be happy." Ibn Hisham, the author of the Book of Crowns, this is a very historic book, right? Which he wrote on the kings of Himyar, reports, it was Yarub who went with the Arabs to Yaman and settled there. Therefore, Yaman was called after him, because Yarub's name was Yaman. Okay, so Yarub's other name is Yaman. That's where they get in Yemen. It is the progenitor of a lot of these African people, guys. This is one of their ancestors. Also spelled Yarub or Jarab. Jarab, like a people. Yarub is an ancient Arabic personal name. He is the grandson of Abir or Eber. Look, Abir, when you click on it, it brings you to Eber. You see? Eber. Joktan is Qatan. So Abir being the son of Qatan, Joktan, and the ancestor of the Himyarites. All right? Full circle. Remember what it was saying. It says, he is the forefather of Al-Arab, Al-Ariba, the Arabs or pure Arabs. Okay, going back to the translation, the Sanhaja trace their origins back to the Himyar. Now you understand what that Himyar means, right? And the Sanhaja trace their origins back to Himyar. They are only related to the Berbers through their women. They came from Yemen, all right? We just verified that. We just read that in Unknown Arabs in the other book, right? From Tariq Berry. They came from Yemen and went to the Sahara, right? And their present homeland in the Maghreb. So again, we're translating this book right here in French, which is literally an account. This is the Tariq al-Sudan. It provides the single most important primary source for the history of the Songhai Empire. So just wanted you guys to see this is real history. All right, so we got a little breakdown of the Sanhaja and where they're coming from, the Himyarites from southern Arabia, Yemen people, right? Yarub's people, Himyarites. So it says here in the Journal of African History, Volume 3, we're just going to continue getting a little bit more sources on this. Yemenis in the Western Sahara. So people from Yemen in the Western Sahara by H.T. Norris. This is from the Cambridge University Press. It says here, Yemeni Arabs in the Western Sahara. Arab nomads of the Bani Makil began to push southward into the region from the 15th century onwards, all right? So remember, they were there from way before that. We already got the drop right before this, right? Either way, this is one of the waves, right? This tribe was definite Yemeni links. These people are known to have been Yemenite Arabs. This is people going into West Africa, right? They're saying in the 1400s right here. If I may be allowed to conjecture on this matter, writes Ibn Khaldun, I would say that they are the descendants of Yemeni Arabs. For amongst the latter, there are two tribes which bear the name of Makil, and to which Ibn al-Kalbi and other genealogies have accorded special mention. There are traces of South Arabian dialects still to be detected in the Hassanija spoken between the Rio de Oro and Timbuktu, according to G.S. Colin, right? And then it has this thing on French. Apart from the Hassanija dialect, other cultural links have been noted. On the basis of the material available about the penetration of Western Africa by tribes of Yemeni Arabs, okay, it is tempting to attribute similar cultural links to them alone. In reality, the problem is more complex, as superficial similarities such as the liction of for indigo are typical of the Tuaregs and other non-Arabic speaking Saharan tribes who have had little or no contact with the Yemeni Arabs. Now, we just went over, we have videos on this series, guys, remember? The past videos, who the Tuaregs are related to. And their ancestors also coming in from Arabia, even though they're not supposedly speaking a language. Furthermore, the Arab historians have a theory that the Sanhaja are themselves Yemenite in origin. This claim is remarkably widespread in Africa. So why would this be a claim if it's widespread and all the Arab historians are telling you that? This is what I want you to guys see, and I want to point out. You got to be able to dodge the hijack. Like, they're trying to make this into a myth. You literally go into Wikipedia on the Sanhaja and it tells, oh, the myth of them being from the Himyarite Yemenite people of Arabia, the myth. They're already saying it's a myth, but then they quote in a historical person or primary source at the same time. Like all these, like they're saying, these Arab historians, right? And this claim was widespread in Africa. Everybody knew that. The Sanhaja were Yemenite. Okay, the Sanhaja were Yemenite, come from Arabia. The Sanhaja is a further branch of many African people, right? We're going to see some today later on. It merits an explanation, but material is so scattered and much so worthless that many have dismissed it as an example of mythical genealogy concocted by non-Arab Muslims of Africa for social or ethical prestige. You see, it merits explanation, but they have dismissed this. They have made it into mythical genealogy. They try to call it a myth when the historians and the primary sources from that time are telling you, the royal people from that time, the royal courts, the chronicles are telling you. Okay, so remember, one of the branches of the Sanhaja was the Sagawa, I believe. They were called the Sagawa, and they eventually mixed with the Garamantes and created the Mandingo. We got a whole video on this. So that's one branch of the Sanhaja. We're going to talk about another branch later on. Well, basically the Sanaga, another branch of the Sanhaja, which we'll see that has a lot of influence with other African people. There's origins to everybody, guys. It's a story, not myth. All right. So they try to say these were just, everybody just wanted to be Arab, so they just added it to their genealogy. That's their explanation of this stuff, guys. Now, it says here, Arab theories of Berber origin. Ibn Khaldun has several references to this widespread belief. He discusses in a critical way the diverse opinions, then current, and rejects a Gemini origin for the Berber as a whole. The case of the Sanhaja and Ketama is more controversial, though. When it comes to the Sanhaja, it's actually more controversial. I exclude the Sanhaja and the Ketama, who, to quote the Arab genealogists themselves, belong to that nation, an opinion which coincides with my own. Yeah, they belong to the Himyarites, Yemen people, ancient. The theories of the Arab historians, as summarized by Ibn Khaldun, envisage that some, if not all, of the Berbers are descendants of a mixed population of Canaanite and Yemenite origin. So some are mixed with Canaanite and Yemenite, huh? Then now that's a little more reasonable. See now how you get these people. So basically, as the book Unknown Arabs was saying earlier, that they're not really Berber, but the Sanhaja has been classified as Berber people, guys. So we got to be able to dodge the Haja. We just saw the whole history. So, and we're going to show some more. They're actually, when it comes to the male lineage, or, most of them were from Yemen, the Sanhaja people coming from the Himyarites, the Himyarite bloodline. Okay. And what happens is that they eventually got with the Berbers through marriage, or their women, the women so-called Berbers. What is a Berber? We got to break that down too. You understand? There's a lot to break down, guys, and we're going little by little. That's why we got this series going. That's why we do a little refresh here and there. But I want you guys to get specifically today with the Sanhaja Confederacy, this empire, right? Where are their origins and who comes out of them. Again, they're from Yemen. They're coming into this region, grabbing the women of the so-called Berbers. So I guess some of them might consider the Berbers. Some people consider Berbers Canaanite, coming from, I believe, Canaan, literally the son of Ham. or Numidians, things like that. We're going to get into all that. All right. But as it says here, some may be descendants, some cannot, but definitely Geminite origin is in there somewhere. All right. Probably remnants of the Ghassanids and other tribes which dispersed after the collapse of the Marib Dam. So in this more modern article, probably, well, we'll get the word from the actual people in that time. We'll see what they're saying, right? One of the rulers of the Yemen invaded the Maghrib. One of the rulers of Yemen. He built castles and cities and settled a Geminite population there. E.F. Gautier, amongst others, believes this Levantine or Himyaritic, right? A son of Jarub, Himyar, son of Seba, as we saw earlier, Seba, who is a son of Jarub. So the Sabians come from Seba, but Seba had a son named Himyar, where you get the Himyarites, and these Himyarites, right? Eventually, a lot of these came into Africa, and you get a lot of different African nations, right? So E.F. Garda says he believes this, the Levantine or Himyaritic theory to be totally fictitious. In his view, it can be explained by a transference of the surviving Punic legacy in North Africa to their Semitic kindreds. You know, that's his opinion as to why they're so Arab, the people there. Like, why are they so influenced? Why is this a claims that is widespread? You know, he tries to explain it away. Right? It says, are the Sanhaja Geminites, those parts of the Sahara, inhabited by descendants of the veiled Sanhaja and their kindred who claim Almoravid descent? So this is a big one, guys. We're going to get into this. If you don't know who the Almoravids are, these are supposed to be your very first so-called Moors invading the Iberian Peninsula. But most of them were Almoravids. And the Almoravids historically claim descent and their origin from the Sanhaja Empire, Sanhaja people, Sanhaja Confederacy. Okay? So who are these Moors really going into Spain? We're talking about so-called Africans. They're actually Arabs. Oh, we're going to get into more of that, right? We're going to break this down more and more. We're going to show the story is going to keep coming in. You guys are going to see how many of these African people are related far in history through different clans that came in from Asia. Okay? So, again, those parts of the Sahara inhabited by the descendants of the veiled Sanhaja and their kindred who claim Almoravid descent are particularly rich in material relating to Himyaritic genealogy. All these people who are claiming, right, they have a lot of actual sources, material relating to Himyaritic genealogy. They know their genealogy has been written in the chronicles, guys. In Mauritania, for example, majority of the lettered Sawaja accept its authenticity for such tribes as the Idu Ish, the Taya Kant, and the Idu Hajj, all right? These other people were also Himyaritic, who also coming from Yemen. These people that are in Africa now, pay attention in Mauritania. Ismail Hamid, in the introduction to his work on Mauritanian historical texts, notes the oral traditions and that Ibn Khaldun excludes the Sanhaja and the Kitama from the pretensions of the Berber genealogists. See? He's saying, no, these two actually, the Sanhaja and Kitama, they're not Berber. They exclude them from that. They're Himyaritic. They're from Arabia. They're Arab. All right, these are historians. These ain't just anybody. In the same book, the Mauritanian scholar, Shaykh Sayyid Muhammad, right, son of Shaykh Ahmad, son of Suleiman, writing to the commandant of Tarsa, claims, as for the Sawaya, mentioned above, other than the Tashumsha, they are for the most part Himyarite in origin. All right, from Himyar, from Yemen, from Arabs. The Idu Hajj trace their ancestry to the Ansar. The two genealogies are brought together because the Ansar and the Himyarites were both of the same tribe. All these people from Africa are actually from Yemen. Most of the Sawaja entered the country with the Imam Abu Bakr. Okay, Abu Bakr, who is a ancestor, again, to the Wolof. We're going to see later. The Wolof. Okay, yeah, we're going to talk about the Wolof and who else is coming out of these same people. All right, these Himyarite Sanhaja people. Abu Bakr, he's mad famous. Umar son of Umar, when they introduced Islam there, all right? He was of Himyaritic origin, as well as the bulk of his warriors, all right? Abu Bakr, all these people, and very so-called black, pure Arabs. Pure Arabs. Don't think of what you think about Arab today only. About ancient, very ancient time and Middle Ages as well still. All these people ended up being a lot of your Africans, guys. The Mauritanian scholar Ahmad, son of Al-Maid Shinkiti, and his Kitab al-Wasit fi Tarahim Udaba Shinkit indicates that there are divergencies in the chroniclers about the origins of the Lamtuna. So the Lamtuna possibly where a lot of the Wolofs coming out of, because the Abu Bakr, their ancestor, is from the Lamtuna clan of the Sanhaja. All right. So a lot of chroniclers there of the origins of the Lamtuna, but that the most prevalent view is that they are Himyarites. The most prevalent view, the most thing all these historians are claiming. Pay attention, I'm not talking about any modern day Pan-African who's mad at me, or anybody listening right now. You got no research. You're not even looking at the primary sources. I don't care what y'all say. I'm talking about what the primary sources say, what the Royal Chronicles say, what most of the people from that time period are saying, right? Their prevalent view is that they are Himyarites, right? From Yemen, from southern Arabia, these so-called African people, and that they entered the Maghreb sometime prior to Islam, before the spread of Islam. So this is how they try to explain why Africans are so Arabized, right? So much Arab culture with them. Oh, because they got Islamicized by the invading Islamic. No, they were there before that happened. A lot of these people were already there before all that, guys. We've been showing that in this series. We've been showing the Lebu people coming from Hindustan, the Shona people, the Bantu Shona people coming from Persia, right? We've shown all this. The Hausa people coming from Baghdad, from Iraq, Palestine. We've shown all this, guys. Before all this Islam stuff, okay? In this case, we're talking about the Sanhaja. We're talking about a lot of the people in Senegal. We're talking about a lot of the people in the Sahara, right? Mauritania. Even as you guys see, the Iberian Peninsula, some of the so-called Moors were actually Himyarites. Actually, people from Yemen, actually Arabia. Doesn't that change everything? Now we got to think about this whole Moorish history in a different way, and we're about to step into that. We're just getting our feet wet right now, okay? So the prevalent view again is that they were Himyarites, period, all right? They were there prior to Islam. He quotes verses by al-Badawi of Midlish, the author of Amud and Nasab, which state that these are primary sources, right? The Banu Abad were kings of distinguished stock in Al-Andalus, look in Spain, but the wise one, Yusuf, son of Tashifin, the just, the Himyari, he was a Himyari, then of the Lamtuna, took it away from them. They were already there, is what he's trying to show you. A primary source later, you know. It says the same theory is widespread amongst the Tuaregs. A reference occurs in the 8th century of the Tariq Sudan al-Sadi. He identifies the Tuareg with the Masufa branch of the Sanhaja. Okay, so many branches of the Sanhaja. So another branch is the Masufa, which the Tuareg come out of. So we got the Sagawa is a branch of the Sanhaja, which, you know, we get the Mandingo. And then we got another branch, the Lamtumba, which we probably get the Wolof. This is what I'm going to show you. And many more, guys. Many more different branches eventually create different peoples who are mixing with different peoples, right? That's why they're distinct peoples. Eventually they become their own people. So the Tuareg, I told you that earlier, they're Himyar too. They're from Arabia. They're pure Arabs. They're from Himyar. They're from Yarub. He then proceeds to quote Al-Hulan al-Mashiwa. There is no link in genealogy between them and the Berbers. They're not Berbers except in the maternal line, except because they started mating with the women that were Berbers. In ancient times, they left Yemen and journeyed to the Sahara. They left Yemen and went to Africa, into Africa. Pay attention. Are we learning? We got so many videos now, right? Start taking notes so you can understand who's who. There was once a mighty Tuba, reigning in Sheba, who surpassed all his predecessors. A rabbi told him about the seal of the prophets who was to come. The Tuba accepted this belief and tried to convert the people of the Yemen to monotheism. Only a few followed his example. They were overwhelmed by unbelievers after their monarch's death. They were slaughtered and hunted, and at that time veiled themselves, following the custom of their womenfolk. They dispersed in the lands under Shabam control and later continued their wandering until they reached the farthest Maghreb, northern Africa, where they settled. The veil then became an honored and indispensable garment. Their speech was corrupted through contact and intermarriage with their neighbors. That's why they wear that veil, the men, right? They cover their faces. These Arab people in Africa. This ingenious story attempts to explain the origin of the veil in the Yemenite context. As far as is known, no similar veil has ever been worn by South Arabians. Henry Barth, discussing the genealogy of the Bornu kings and the foundation of the dynasty of the Sefuwa and Kanem, all right, listen to this. In the 9th century AD, is skeptical but does not totally reject the Himyaritic connection. All right, we gone over that when we're talking about the Hausa Bornu video I did. All right. A little further ahead, it says here the Lamtuna tradition from Mauritania. All right, the Lamtuna, again, another branch of the Sanhaja. The Lamtuna are descendants of the ancient rulers of the Yemen, okay? They coming from Yemen, period, guys. Because of this and because of their noble qualities, they were given a special name which distinguished them from the rest of the Himyarites, and a tribe known as Al-Misam, called after a kind of brand given to their cattle. All right, we continue, all right? So we're just getting some, different sources just so people can see it's not just in one book. Right here, we're reading, it says here, Exploring Muslim Context. The book is called Genealogy and Knowledge in Muslim Societies, Understanding the Past, edited by Sarah Bowen Savant and Helena de Felipe, okay? All right, so we belly flop to page 59 of this book, and it says here, the Himyari origins of the Sanhaja, okay? There's a considerable Arab historiographical heritage concerning the origins of the Berbers, right? In this case, they're calling them Berbers here. See, this is what I'm saying. So the question of Himyar and its relationship with some Berber tribes must be placed within this corpus of classical traditions that advocate the Berber Oriental origin, right? They're debunking that, with a significant portion focusing on Yemen as the place of origin of the population of North Africa and linking the latter to the southern Arab tribes, all right? This material was analyzed by Harry T. Norris, who we just came from, right? Who discussed the Himyari myth, right? See how they're calling it a myth? And its relationship to the origin of the Almoravids, so-called Moors, showed the link. These are Arabs, pure Arabs coming from Yemen, not from Africa, showed the link between the tales on the subject preserved in Arabic sources and older traditions, in which even Alexander the Great plays an important role. So traditions linking the Berbers with Yemen. So again, they're calling the Sanhaja Berbers. That's what they're saying. They're calling them Berbers. So touch the hijack with that, right? So the Sanhaja, talking about the Sanhaja, right? With Yemen were already present in the work of Wab ibn Munabin from 700s AD. Look, he was writing about the Sanhaja being from Yemen all the way back then. A Yemenite of Persian origin. And he was also from... Listen to that. He was from Yemen, but he was actually Persian, and he was in Africa. Listen, whose work has been preserved in Ibn Hisham's Kitab al-Tifam fi Muluk Himyar. This book refers to several episodes and figures related to the Sanhaja, further discussed in later literature. These include the idea of the Berber as the Canaanite populations that were expelled from Palestine, the figure of the Himyari king Ifrikis. All right, so this is a whole other story. This is a guy called Ifrikis, who was from Himyar, who was from Yemen, who wasn't a pure Arab. Himyari king Ifrikis appear in the same book. He is assumed to be responsible to transfer the Sanhaja. Listen, he is the one responsible. Him, Ifrikis, right? And Tuba. So another one like Tuba. These people are bringing on waves of people from Yemen. This is another one, Ifrikis, King Ifrikis. He's assumed to be responsible for the transfer of a lot of these Arab populations from the east to the Maghreb, and to be the man after whom the region of Ifriqiya was named. Okay, where they really getting that from? From the Arabs. This famous character, Ifrikis, is repeatedly mentioned by Arab sources when referring to the origin of these people, the Sanhaja, where they were called Berbers, not only with regard to the place name of Ifriqiya, but also as the first to have called the Barbar by that name. And then they started calling some people Barbars. Listen, there are numerous and varied references in later Arab sources to the Yemenite ancestry of the Sanhaja tribes, that is the Hawara. There's again, that's Sanhaja. This is why I say that's the Haja when they're calling them Berbers. We just saw they're not really Berbers. We just broke that down already before reading these modern books. This is why I'm saying it's still confusing people. But the Hawara of Sanhaja, of the tribe of Amila, the Sawila of the Yurhum, and so forth. I will not dwell on the casuistry and the legends arising from this textual material, which has already been studied, because I aim to focus here on the links between Sanhaja and the Himyar. All right, tribes which were the grounds for the legitimation of Yusuf ibn Tashfin, the famous genealogist. All right, we got a famous genealogist, Ibn al-Kalbi from the 800s, in his book Nasamat wal Ayaman al-Kabir, and specifically the chapter on the descendants of Himyar ibn Saba. Himyar, right, the son of Saba, who is the son of Jarub, who is the son of Joktan or Katan. All right, remember the lineage, guys, the genealogy. Remember the genealogy, okay? So Himyar, the descendants of Himyar, refers to Ifrikis, Ibn, or son of Kais, son of Safi. So Ifrikis, he's saying, are from the same line of the Himyar, setting out the aforementioned arguments as the originator of the Sanhaja, named in the form of Barbar. So he started calling people Barbar because of their way of speaking. Al-Barbara signifies a mixture of sounds without meaning. So when they got to Africa, saw a lot of the local people, this guy right here, supposedly he was the one saying, hey, they're Barbar, meaning they can't speak or they sound. It's like mumbling, babbling, right? Maybe the most important point about this reference is that it mentions the Sanhaja and the Kutama as Yemenis, belonging to the tribe of Himyar, okay? The most important point of this reference, this is the famous genealogist, right, from the 800s. So this is a primary source. So why are you calling it a myth? You see what I'm trying to tell you guys? And this is before Islam was spreading. So it wasn't because of the Islam influence that these people became Arabs. No, they are the Arabs. So the Sanhaja and the Kutama, they belong to the Himyar tribe, and as sons of Al-Sur, son of Sa'id, son of Jabir, son of Sa'id, son of Qais, son of Saifi. According to the text, they have the whole genealogy, guys. Both tribes had settled among the Berbers. See, they settled among the people they started calling Berbers until today. The author wants to emphasize that at that time of his writing, those people had not returned to the Yemen, and they remained in the Maghreb, okay? They didn't leave, they stayed there. So where are they today? What happened to them? Who's there? You see what I'm saying? They are your Africans. As regards this subject, it is also important to take into account the Kitab al-Iqlil by Hassan ibn Ammar ibn Yaqub al-Hamdani from 900 AD, as it is specifically mentioned as proof of the Himyari origin of the Sanhaja in Western Islamic sources, okay? So guys, there's so many sources, right? And they're trying to call it a myth. This is what I'm trying to point out to you guys. As we shall see below, indeed, in the part that focuses on the descendants of the Himyari Murra the Himyari Murra, son of Aban Shams, son of Wa'il, the Kitab al-Iqli says that these include the Sanhaja and the Kutama, okay? They are included in that genealogy, as well as the Uhama and the Lawata and the Sanata. These are all clans or branches of the Sanhaja, who these different branches create different African people today. Again, we've broken some of them down already. The author is well aware that these are supposedly Berber tribes, right? They're supposed to be Berber tribes. The author is like, hey, they're supposed to, but they're actually from Yemen. They're from the Sanhaja. They're from Himyarite. So he knows they're being called Berber tribes, as he explains that the Ruas or Al-Barbar, leader of the Berbers, were transferred to Ifriqiya by Ifriqis. Later Eastern authors echoed previous traditions, as in the case of the Yemenite Nashwan ibn Sa'id al-Himyari from 1000 or 1100s AD, who used al-Hamdani as a source. In his Muluk Himyar wa Akil al-Yaman, he relates the ancient stories about the journeys of the Himyari kings Abraha and his son Ifriqis. That almost sounds like Abram, huh? And his son Ifriqis. Himyari, the son of Abraham, is actually called Ifriqis. He is a Himyari. Himyari, enough that the same guy, right? Because Abraham is not in the lineage of the same genealogy, right? So either way, look at all the different stories, guys. The latter traveled as far as Tangiers, ordered the city of Ifriqiya to be built, and settled several Himyari tribes of his Qawm or people there. He settled, look, this guy brought Ifriqis, Ifriqis, who's a pure Arab, who's Arab, a black Arab, pure Arab, coming from Yemen, guys, not African. He settled a bunch of people there. He built a city called Ifriqiya, right? He settled his people there, namely the Kutama. That's his people, the Umaha, the Sanata, the Lawata, and Sanhaja. These are his people who remain in the Maghrib. The Sanhaja, right? Ibn al-Atir, when discussing the origin of these people and quoting Ibn al-Kalbi, mentions that the Sanhaja and Kutama are both Banu, or sons of Ifriqis, son of Saifi, son of Saba. Son of Saba, oh, that's where he's coming from. From Saibi to Saba, who is the son of Jarub, and that both are tribes of Himyar that remained in the Maghrib among the Berbers. Amongst, they're not Berbers. Yaqut al-Hawadi, an author who compiled sources of various origins, also quotes Ibn al-Kalbi and says that the Sanhaja and the Kutama, unlike the rest of the Berbers, were sons of Ifriqis, okay? Again, from Yemen. They stayed on as governors of the Maghrib when their father returned to Yemen. Data from authors of the 11th century also showed that the thesis concerning the Himyari origin of the Sanhaja was well known in Al-Andalus. Ibn Abam al-Bar refers to the Sanhaja and the Kutama as sons of Ifriqis, although he also includes testimonies that cast doubt on this lineage, and al-Bakri from 1094 refers to Abraha dul Manar al-Himyara and his troops who remain in the Maghrib, all right, coming from the Himyars. Some of this information is mentioned in much later works, such as the text of Kitab al-Ibar by Ibn Khaldun and the Kitab al-Ansa by Ibn Alban al-Halim, 14th century. These traditions were debated in various testimonies and questioned by genealogists, including Ibn Hassam, although it seems clear that in the medieval Islamic West, there was a deep and lasting knowledge of them that linked not only the Berbers in general with Yemen, you know, they're talking about these so-called Berbers, the ones that are not Berbers, right? But the Kutama and the Sanhaja with the Yemenite tribes of Himyar in particular. In the case of Yusuf ibn Tajfin, the above-mentioned text by Ibn al-Arabi is particularly important for several reasons. First, because it is a contemporary text. Second, because it is part of a discourse, right? That's a primary source, they're saying. And it's part of a discourse that seeks legitimacy. And finally, because it shows us how genealogical knowledge is used in a given context. Later authors and texts refer to this link between the Almoravid, Almir, and the tribe of Himyar. Okay, the Almoravids and the Himyarites, all right? Ibn Minhari includes the Nasab, Yusuf ibn Tajfin, Ibn Turjud, son of Wartim, son of Mansur, son of Mansala, son of Amina, son of Wan Mali, al-Samhaji. Oh, that was his name. And adds al-Hamdani, mentioned in his book al-Iqlin, that Sanhaj, that's probably the name of the progenitor that they named Sanhaja after, right? Sanhaj was one of the descendants of Abam Shams, son of Wail ibn Himyar, son of Wail, who's the son of Himyar. So Sanhaja was a real person. They got the Sanja's word, who was a, I guess, let me see, great-grandson of Himyar. Okay? Sanjaj. And the stories that say Sanhaja is from Himyar agree. In this case, the Maghribi author selects only this information to accompany the biography of Yusuf ibn Tashfin, ignoring the rest of the tradition, which, as we have seen, also includes the Kutama, sorry. This is a good sample of the use of genealogical history and its adaptation to a specific context. All right, that's how you do research, and you gotta go with the genealogy. So again, these Himyarites, you see going all the way, becoming at one point in history in some location the Almoravids too, who invaded Spain and Portugal, so-called Moors. You know, the work of Al-Hulal al-Mashiva includes the departure of the Mulan Tamun from Yemen. That's the Sanhaja. They departed from Yemen. Listen, the reasons why they wore the veil and how they arrived in the Maghreb and intermarried with the Berbers. They got the women. That's why they became known as Berbers. But they are Arabs, guys. Furthermore, when it discusses the origin of the Sanhaja Lamtuna, it states that they are related to the Berbers only through their kinship with their Berber wives. See, it's because they took on Berber wives, and adds that the Sanhaja traced their genealogy to Himyar from Yemen, who came from Yemen, went to the desert and settled in the Maghreb. Later, the part of this work dedicated to Yusuf ibn Tashfin, which includes detailed descriptions of his career in the Maghreb and Al-Andalus, contains his nasab, which differs from that in Idhari's text. Al-Hulal al-Mashiya gives the Almoravid Amir the Nisba al-Himyari, but provides no relevant explanation for this, having already done so in the preceding pages. Son of Abir Sa'd from the 1300 also mentions the Eastern authors Al-Hamdani and Ibn Kalbi, and compiles all the genealogical information on the Sanhaja and the Almoravids. So many people in history have already proven this. These texts we will never probably see or read because they're in other languages. They're somewhere, these are medieval. We're talking about something that was written in the 1300s in a different language, guys. Who has these texts? Right? Who's holding on to all this stuff and not letting the people know the whole history, the real history? Talking about out of Africa now. We're talking about into Africa. That's what I'm talking about. Wake up, right? You guys still there, right? Into Africa. This changes everything. Okay? All right, guys. So we're going to move on to one more source real quick. All right. I just want you guys to see. This is very, very historical, and how hard it may be to know these things, especially when they're written in different languages in olden times. But there is some more modern, Arab sources that I could kind of like almost use to be able to translate. So this is one of them. All right. Like, look, I don't understand none of this. What is this? What is this saying? I didn't even know if this was a book or what. And the way I had to find the word Yemen, I had to figure out how to say Yemen in Arabic, and I found that on Google Translate. And so I hit search on this book, and I started finding different pages that had the word contained, and I was able to see that it's actually telling the same story. So first of all, I'm going to just translate this part right here, which is the title of the book, right? All right, you guys are going to see. So you guys can see how I did this, right? So I grab this, I copy, I go into Google Translate, paste it right there, and this is the what it's telling me. So it's called The End of the Four on the Relationship of the Sanhaja to the Himyarites of the Arabs, and the continuation of the book of conclusive proofs of the Himyarite leaders of the Almoravids through the testimony of the most prominent, just and learned scholars who have been transmitted by many generations. And it is a decisive sword. So that's the title of the book, guys. That's the whole title right there. It says, and it is a decisive sword, a drawn descendant on the tongue of every ignorant, envious, and malicious slanderer, authored by Khalid bin Isa al-Yemeni, all right? And participated in it Muhammad Suwadat al-Hajij al-Himyari. May God forgive them, okay? So these are the sources. This is their own writings, right? This is what I'm translating. I was able to copy paste everything. You guys, you can believe me or not, but I did it just like that, guys. I don't have no reason to make anything up. Because one day I was in Medina, specifically in the library of my Sheikh Muhammad al-Igata, may God have mercy on him, and I saw a book entitled The Conclusive Evidences of the Leaders of the Himyarites, in which he defends the lineage of his fathers and grandfathers, the Himyarites. So he found a primary source. Okay? of a person from that time saying, hey, these are my descendants, the Himyarites. May God have mercy on them, and brings together the scattered descendants of their descendants. That, listen, this is what he's saying. These authors are saying, these primary sources are saying, right? Each of them, when he was looking at the research in the books, right? These primary sources, each of them wrote word for word, verbatim, that the Sanhaja and the Ketama, who are the origin of the Lamtuna, who the Lamtuna come out of, just as the Lamtuna are the origin of the leaders of the Almoravids, the Masufija, and others, maybe like the Wolof, trace their lineage back to the kings of the Himyarite Tuba. All right? This is what I'm trying to tell you guys. This is what I'm trying to tell you. It's written in all their sources. I'm just showing you examples here. One of the Tuba's kings named Ifrikish, there we go again, where Ifrik invaded in the continent of Africa, was named after him. He left behind his cousins as kings over the Berbers. It is true that their language necessarily changed while its origins remained, just as some of their maternal uncles could have been Berbers. Maternal. Despite the long cohabitation, they still possess all the characteristics of a pure Arab. Khatan or Jatan, Khatan or Yemen, Jaman, Yarub. Remember, a pure Arab, Yarub, pure Arab. Such as color, a pure Arab is the color, right? These are black people, they talk about pure Africans, very dark, eloquence and conservatism. Among the characteristics is also the longing for the emirate, as they are its sons, the sons and worthy of it. This history has been hidden, guys. They're even writing about it. Even back then, they're like, yo, they're trying to erase our lineage. They're trying to turn us into Africans. Until he reaches the highest level of continuity from scholars who have proven the Himyarite Sanhaja, such as Al-Mas'udi ibn Salam, son of Salam, Al-Tabari, son of Khalikan, and others. He then puts the famous poem in the long meter, a people who have the honor of the noble among the Himyarites. And if they claim to be Sanhaja, they are them. So if the people who are the royals or the nobles of the Himyarites saying, no, these are our people, and if they claim to be Sanhaja, they are them. Who are we to say they are not, man? When they possessed every virtue, modesty overcame them, so they veiled themselves. It says down here, the books of scholars who spoke of the Himyarite origin of the Almoravids are rarely promoted. It is strange that some historians describe the lineage of the Almoravids as mythical. That's literally what they say about a lot of the African tribes. We saw already in my past videos on this series, right? They try to give them like this mythical, oh, we come from father this and father that. We came from the stars and dropped the water blows. And then, these mythical stuff. When we know the origin, we proved it, right? So you guys see the legends. It's all there. It's all there. I translated just to make sure. It says, and when he returned from the invasion of the Maghreb, the town about Tuba or Ifrika, right? He left behind from the Himyarite tribes Sanhaja. They're Himyarite. There you go, Sanhaja and Kutam, and they're still there until now. They're still there till now. Okay? And so on, guys. All right, so we're back in the book, The Unknown Arabs, clear definitive proof of the dark complexion of the original Arabs and the Arab origin of the Afrikaans, by Tariq Berry, of the Africans, not Americans, Africans. We're about page 127 of this book. We go into this part of the book now. It says here, the Wolof, right? The Wolof. Who's the Wolof? Who are the Wolof people? Now that we got a breakdown, a context. Right, it says here, the Wolof, found in Senegal and Gambia, is an Arab tribe, okay? They're found where in Senegal and Gambia, right? Is an Arab tribe, descended from Himyarite Arabs. So we got the whole breakdown now, so we understand. From Yemen, the Wolof, their ancestor Abu Bakr, son of Umar, is the cousin of Yusuf, son of Tajfim, and is from the Sanhaja Himyarite Arabs. Okay, the Wolof. The Wolof, there you go. In fact, the name of the country that they are widespread is in Senegal, right, was named after Sanhaja. That's one of its branches. Sanhaja, a branch of the original tribe. the Sanhaja. This Joseph Ishbim Tashfin is the famous leader of the Almoravid dynasty that rules Senegal. Okay? See, different sources telling you. Mauritania and Morocco. And Andalusia. Talking about southern Spain, man. In the 11th century AD, this Almoravid dynasty started the area called Senegal today. From there, Senegal, they set out to conquer much of North Africa and Spain. Now, Abu Bakr, son of Umar, the Sanhaja Himyarite ancestor of the Wolof, okay, this is their ancestor, was also called Abu Dardai. You might know him as Abu Dardai. That's the same person, Abu Bakr, who's a Sanhaja Himyarite. It's the same person, in case you don't know who we're talking about. And he had a son named Amadou. This is the connection. Listen, if you guys don't understand the history of the Wolof, you might not recognize these names. Okay, and they're connecting. You're letting you know how it connects to the Sanhaja Himyarite Yemen people. So there's Abu Bakr, who's also called Abu Dardai. Darda. Sounds like Judah's son, right? Darda. He had a son named Ahmed or Amadou. All right. This Amadou was called Nadaya. So even him had a different name. This is the legend of Nadayan Dadai. This is, so basically, the Nadayan is like a mythical character eventually. That it became a mythical progenitor of the Wolof. And then you forget the real context, the real person who was actually Ahmed or Amadou, the son of Abu Bakr, the son of Umar, from the Sanhaja people, the Himyarite in Yemen. You forget the whole history because it becomes mythical. Now he's known as Nadayai. John Ralph Willis says, tradition holds that Abu Dardai, the forerunner of Nadayai, founder of the Wolof community in Wallo, Senegal. Who's the founder of the Wolof community in Wallo, Senegal? Was descended from Murabitin, Almoravids, okay? He was what? A descendant from the Murabitin Almoravids. And remember, the Almoravids are from the Sanhaja Himyarites. They're from Yemen. Same people they call him Moors. Listen. Same people they call him Moors. These are all Arabs. Okay? So that's how you get the connection. Descendant, again, Amadou Bubakar, son of Umar, who took the name Nadayan Nadai. See, they changed his name in parentheses, first brak of the Wallo, where the Wolof come from, is seen as the son of the Almoravid Amir Abu Bakr and a Torodo woman. All right, Torodo. You know, we got the breakdown of what a Torodo woman is. That doesn't just mean African either. We broke it down in the previous videos. All right, go ahead and check that out. There's a Himyarite bloodline there too, and other stuff, Arab from Garamantes and all that. It says El Khalil El Nawi says in his book Muslim Africa, The Lost Identity. Right, listen, in his book Muslim Africa, The Lost Identity. That's a good book to get a hold of, right? It's probably not in English. Nadayan Najeh, the first king of Wallo, is descended from Abu Bakr. All right, the primary source is letting you know the founder of the Wolof in Wallo, okay, is descended from Abu Bakr ibn Umar, commander of the Almoravids, and an African wife. They're saying, remember, it's a Torodo wife. Torodo's not African. We've already shown that in the previous parts. All right, make sure to catch up on the previous part. You guys see the breakdown of the Torodos, just like we did the breakdown of the Sanhaja. Got to understand the whole breakdown, the whole context. Okay, so Nadaye Naya, who is actually Amadou, right, descended from Abu Bakr, commander of the Almoravids. El Khalil El Nawi says that Abu Bakr's wife was an African, in parentheses, listen, But in fact, she wasn't African, like I was just saying. You thought I was just hating, huh? She wasn't African, but an Arab woman from the tribe of Turud. I told you that Torodo are not from Africa either. They're from the Turud, an Arab tribe. Remember that the Turud, we got this already, tribe is a branch of the Mandingo tribe and are Yemenites. Remember, we already got the Mandingo people. I was going to tell you that. This is why you got to listen when I say up here, they're saying African, but she's not African. The Torodo are not African either. They're Yemenites as well, with Garamantes. As I said before, Askia Muhammad, the famous 16th century Songhai dynasty king that many so-called African Americans take pride in, was from the Turud branch of Mandingo. He was an Arab. All right, so I just want to go ahead and just show you guys that this is not just that book saying that. There is real sources stating this. I got another book here just to verify their whole relationship of the Wolof with these Yemenite people from Arabia, okay? And the history that's there. It says Studies in West African Islamic History. This is volume 1, The Cultivators of Islam. Edited with an introduction by John Ralph Willis, professor at the program in Near Eastern Studies in Princeton University, okay? That's what we're reading right now, just so you guys can see. Nobody's making this up. Now it says here, tradition holds that Abu Dardai, remember, that's the same dude as Abu Bakr, the legendary forerunner of Nadayan Nadaye, founder of the Wolof community. You guys see? In the Wallo. So the founder of the Wolof community, who the Wolof people come from, who is Abu Dardai or Abu Bakr, right, was descended from Murabitin. Again, Ahmadu Bubakar, son of Umar, who took the name Nadaidian Nadei. All right, they just gave him that name. That's not his real name. First Brak of the Wallo is seen as the son of the Almoravid Amir Abu Bakr. That's his son. That's his dad. Abu Bakr and a Torodo woman. Remember, Torodo also Arabs. He's Arab. Nandayan Nadai is 100% Arab. As you guys can see, I just wanted to show you this is real history. Abu Bakr is a Himyarite. Remember, we just read that he's a Himyarite. He is a Himyarite. He is from Yemen. And this is their founder, the Wolof, Nadai Dian Nadai, his son. Okay? From Yemen too, his lineage. Alright guys, so basically we are at the dismount of the video. Before I go, I just want to basically show you something. After I showed you all the history, all the sources, and proven to you that this is all written in all their history, all their chronicles, in these primary sources. They can't hide this stuff. They can't conjecture and say, oh, maybe they just got influenced or adopted as. No, you're just conjecturing. We're seeing the history. Now, when you go to Wikipedia, right, you want to learn about the Wolof people, it's not going to tell you any of this stuff. All it tells you is basic info, right? It says here, the Wolof people are Niger Congo ethnic group native to Senegambia. Native, huh? You see what I'm saying already? The hijack. We already saw that they come from the Himyarite people, right? Himyarite people. Now look at this. Their early history is unclear. They don't want you to know. The earliest documented mention of the Wolof is found in the records of 15th century Portuguese. That's the earliest record. This is what they tell on your Wikipedia. After all that history we just saw from the medieval 100s, 600s, 500 ADs, 400 AD, 800 AD, 1000 AD, 1300 AD. They're saying this is the first one. See how they lie? They don't want you to know this stuff, guys. Look on their history. It says the origins of the Wolof people are obscure. You see what I'm saying? States David Gamble, professor of anthropology and African studies. See, the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper. We don't know. We don't know. You see, guys? This is what they teach people in colleges. We don't know. We don't know. Their name as the Wolof first appear in records of the 15th century. We don't know. This is how they only go back to the 1400s. We don't know anything about them. Now listen to this. We just read about who Abu Bakr was, how his son Ahmadu was changed. His name was changed to Nadaya, right? It says another oral tradition tells of a legend in Wallo. See, it becomes a legend, it becomes a myth, which starts with two villages near a lake in a dispute. A mysterious person arose from the lake to settle the dispute. The villagers detained him. He settled among them and became the one who settled disputes and sovereign authority. So some mysterious person, look, it becomes a myth, like a legend. He arose from a lake. He just came out of the water, right? This is what they want you to think. This is what I'm saying. Or maybe he was just sailing in the lake and he settled the dispute because he was a noble. He was a king and they listened to him. The villagers detained him and said, "Who are you, man? Stay with us." He was called Nadaya, Nadaya, Nadaya. Okay? We already know, right? We just came back from that other book, The Real History, that Nadaya. He took the name. It was Ahmadu Bubakar, the forerunner. His dad, Abu Bakr, who are Himyarites. These are real people, not legends. You see how they do? And his descendants were called Nadayas or Nija. You see? Now he became a legend. Now you're not going to look into it because you think it's a legend. You don't know what this means. This ain't even a real name. His real name was Ahmadu Bubakar. Ahmadu Bubakar. Ahmadu. That was his real name. Son of Abu Bakr, the Himyarite. The Himyarite from the Almoravids. It was a real person. You see how they turned into myth? And these led to ruling families of Wolof. So his descendants led to the ruling families of the Wolof. There you go, confirmed. The Wolof are from Himyarites. So the Wolof Empire, right? Medieval West African state. It says legend of Nadayan Nidaye. Traditional accounts among the Wolof agree that the founder of the state was possibly mythical, Nadaye Nadaye. You see? They made him a mythical. They made real history, right? They made real history, a real person, a mythical, a deity. They did that to a lot of the West African people. They told them that their history is all myth. And they believe it, guys. They believe they want to be from there. They're like, oh, we sprang from this seed, from this guy, from this mysterious person who came out of the lake. His name was Nadaye, Nadaye, Nadaye. Oh, we don't know anything about him, though. How did he get to the lake? Oh, he's a guy. Just believe us. Come on, just believe us. Right? Some say that Nayan was the son of Abu Dardai, an Almoravid, the conqueror who came from Mecca to preach Islam. And yo, hey, listen, that's the real history right there. That's the real history right there. Either way, guys. Either way, that's the guy right there. Look, they turned into a whole legend. There's a whole page on him. It's recording the oral histories of the Wolof and Sirius people. Although the exact days of his reign are unknown, he founded the Nadaya dynasty that ruled Jolof. Okay? These are the Jolof. These are the Wolof people. They come from Abu, who is a Himyarite. Right? Who is a Himyarite. Again, the Wolof, they're an Arab tribe, guys. Descended from the Himyarite Arabs from the Yemen. Their ancestor Abu Bakr, right? That's the guy who they're talking about. His son became Nadaye Nadaye. He's from the Sanhaja Himyarites. That's Sanhaja from the Arabs. Abu Bakr ibn, the Sanhaja Himyarite ancestor of the Wolof, was also called Abu Darda. He had his son named Ahmadu. This Ahmadu was called Nadayan Nadeh. Okay? Tradition holds that Abu Darda, the forerunner of Nadayan Dayan, founder of the Wolof community in Wallo, was descended from Murabitim Almoravids. Okay? Ahmadu Bubakar, son of Umar, who took the name Nadaya Nadeh, first Brak of the Wallo, is seen as the son of the Almoravid Amir Abu Bakr and a Torodo woman, another Arab people. The Torodos are the tribe of Turud from Arabia too. All right, guys? And that's it. That was the presentation for today, guys. Don't want to make them too long because we got to get to a lot more people. Just understand, guys. All right, just understand that the Sanhaja in today's topic, right, are from Yemen. They settled on all these. They got tribes all over: Algeria, Libya, Mali, Mauritania, Morocco, Niger, Senegal, Tunisia, and Western Sahara. Okay, the Senegal, Sanhaja. Even in this Wikipedia, it says Berber tribes such as the Sanhaja or Kutam are often attributed Himyarite origins by Arab historians. Himyar was a polity in the southern highland of the Yemen. All right. Yemen. Who is Himyard? Again, going back to the tree, right? Who is Himyard? As you guys see the arrow all the way up here to the top right. Descendants of Himyard. All the way to the right again, he is under Saba. He is a son of Saba. Who is Saba? Saba is the son of Jarub. Jarub. From Jarub, who is a son of Katan, who is a son of Eber, right? Eber, Katan is Joktan. He is from the Arabs, all right? From Joktan, the Himyarites. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope it makes more sense now as we keep going over and over the information. Make sure to check out the other videos in this series, Africans Not From Africa, so you guys can understand. It's not just a couple people, it's not just a couple tribes, it's not just the Sanhaja, it's not just these Himyarite people from the Sahara, okay? There's a lot more people coming from Asia. Check out the previous videos, and we got a lot to go still, all right? Hope you guys enjoyed the information. I hope you guys see there's a real history here that has been hidden also in Africa. The origin of a lot of the African people, especially the ruling class of Africa today, are actually have foreign origins, most of them in Asia, right? A lot of them in Asia, Asiatic countries, as you guys can see. Thanks for taking the time to be here all the way to the end today, guys. We got more coming. Tune in, all right? Appreciate you guys. Much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Awa.